All right, welcome to the deep dive. You've given us this incredible stack of material, articles, research, notes, all pointing towards one really deep question.
Yeah.
Why is religion such a, well, fundamental part of human life?
Mm-hmm.
We're using your sources here to explore this, not debating beliefs, obviously, but trying to understand the architecture of belief itself.
Exactly. And the sources you sent cover a lot of ground. You've got the subtle ways religious bias shapes society.
Right.
The brain networks involved, which is surprisingly complex, actually. Then tracing its evolutionary roots, looking at cognitive sort of tricks our minds play, and just the sheer power of belonging to a religious group.
It's a really fascinating journey. Pulls together psychology, history, neuroscience. So our mission is to pull out the essential insights from all this material, helping you understand why conviction runs so deep, why just, presenting information often doesn't change things.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. So first up, the material points out something crucial. Religious bias isn't just some side effect. It seems to actually help religion embed itself in daily life.
Right. It functions like other forms of social bias. The sources mention historical examples, Roman persecution of early Christians, medieval anti-Semitism, dynamics under certain historical Muslim rules, the Catholic-Protestant conflicts. It's a long history.
And definitely not just history. Your material shows it's contemporary too, right? Globally.
Oh, absolutely. Discrimination against minorities or non-believers pops up in places like Pakistan, China, India, even in Western contexts. It's still very much present.
So what's the key mechanism here? How does this bias work?
Well, often it's implicit. And a really powerful engine is in-group bias, favoring your own group.
Okay.
And this isn't just about prejudice against others, though that happens. It's fundamentally about creating cohesion within the religious community.
Oh.
It helps solidify shared ethics, values, customs, all the stuff that makes up a group's culture and, day-to-day life.
That makes a lot of sense. It builds that tight-knit fabric inside the group. Okay, so shifting from the social world into our heads, the sources say we're way past looking for a single God spot in the brain.
Yeah, definitely past that. It's much more about distributed networks working together. Your material highlights the triple network model.
Triple network. Okay, break that down.
Think of it like different brain teams. You got the default mode network, or DMN. That handles internal stuff, thinking about yourself, social interactions, even pondering a deity's mind or intentions.
Okay, so DMN is like the self-others abstract thought team.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's the frontoparietal network, FPN, that's more like the control center for reflection, managing thoughts.
The executive function part.
Exactly. And the Salience network, SN, that's the prioritization team.
Yeah.
Figures out what's important, what to pay attention to, and help switch between the other networks. Religious thinking seems to engage all these teams.
Using the brain's general cognitive machinery, basically.
Precisely. And specific regions play roles, too. Your sources mentioned the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
Right, involved in that executive control. But there was that weird finding.
Oh, yeah, the paradoxical lesions. It's fascinating. Damage to certain PFC areas can sometimes increase fundamentalist beliefs or mystical experiences.
Which seems totally counterintuitive.
It does. It suggests the PFC's normal job might actually be to inhibit or regulate some of those intuitive states or intense experiences. The theory of mind network, the one we use to figure out what others are thinking that gets naturally pulled in when thinking about a deity's intentions, makes sense, right?
Yeah, that tracks.
Plus, the temporal lobes are often linked to mystical feelings, sometimes seen clearly in things like temporal lobe epilepsy.
So the big picture is the brain isn't purpose-built for religion.
Correct.
But religion is really good at, borrowing the structures we already have for social understanding and self-control.
Exactly. Borrowing is a great word for it. These capacities evolve for other reasons.
So where did all this complex thought and social capacity come from in the first place?
That brings us to evolution, right? Right. Your material connects the dots between our expanding brains, especially the neocortex and frontal lobes, and the rise of more complex social lives.
Dunbar's hypothesis territory. Group size, brain size.
Yep, that's in there. And alongside that, the evolution of key cognitive abilities, understanding cause and effect for tool use, symbolic thought showing up in early art like ochre use or cave paintings, and, crucially, language for sharing complex ideas. These all built the foundation.
So was the religious mind itself an adaptation, maybe for group cohesion? or just a byproduct, a spandrel of these other big changes.
That's the big debate the sources touch on. Either way, religion clearly leveraged these new cognitive tools. And one powerful driver mentioned is mortality salience.
Awareness of death.
Exactly. Becoming aware of our own mortality, interacting with those self-awareness networks like the DMN, probably fueled early religious thought, especially ideas about an afterlife. You see hints in early burial practices.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. When we shift to how our minds actually hold on to these beliefs so strongly, the cognitive mechanisms.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. Your sources point to the dual process model. It suggests many people lean towards intuitive thinking, especially when intuition clashes with analysis in religious matters. Intuition often wins out.
And then confirmation bias kicks in hard, right? You seek out stuff that fits what you already believe and ignore the rest.
Absolutely. Makes beliefs incredibly resistant to change. And then there's motivated reasoning, that unconscious push to reach conclusions that feel good or fit your identity or group.
So you accept things partly because they offer comfort or belonging, even if the evidence isn't, rock solid.
Pretty much. It explains accepting beliefs for psychological comfort. Your material also mentions conflict detection, the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC.
What about it?
For some religious individuals, it seems this system might be less sensitive when an intuitive belief clashes with logic. Less internal alarm bells ringing, maybe.
So less mental friction. Makes it easier to hold the belief.
Potentially. And then there's belief perseverance, holding on even if the original reason you believe something gets debunked.
And that idea of dismissing alternatives.
Yeah.
The sources mentioned putting it on the shelf.
Yeah, that phrase captures it well. It's a cognitive strategy. Consciously or not, you just bracket away contradictory information, call it a mystery, something for later, whatever the point is to protect the core belief.
Putting it on the shelf. I can see how that works. It maintains coherence. But okay, with all these individual mind factors, why organize? Why is the group aspect so central and powerful?
Because organized religion meets profound social needs that go way beyond just evaluating doctrine. There's social conformity, for one.
Fitting in?
Right. Your sources even hint at neural conformity. Our brains might actually find it easier, less effortful, to just align with the group's beliefs internally.
Wow. And the in-group dynamic creates that really strong sense of belonging, a shared reality.
Totally. And in that context, questioning core beliefs isn't just thinking differently. It feels like a threat to the community, to those vital connections.
Yeah, you risked losing your tribe.
And the tangible benefits are huge, what sociologists call social capital. The material lists things like health benefits, real social support, shared information, resources, just overall well-being.
Plus the psychological side, meaning emotional comfort, coping tools, hope, collective rituals really boost that unity.
Definitely. And so the cost of losing all that support, that identity, meaning it's often a massive barrier, far outweighing intellectual doubts for many people.
Okay, so bringing it all together then.
Yeah, religion is so deeply woven in because it taps into these evolved brain structures built for social life. It leverages basic cognitive biases that make beliefs sticky and resistant to change. And it powerfully meets fundamental human needs for belonging, meaning, and coping. It's emotional and social, not just intellectual. And those same biases that create in-group harmony can unfortunately also fuel out-group conflict.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, this deep dive helps show not just what people believe, but why they believe it with such incredible conviction. It shows how our own minds, wired with biases and a deep need for connection, are kind of set up to support belief systems, and why just throwing facts at someone often doesn't shift deeply held beliefs. It's the mind's architecture plus that powerful pull of the group.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Given that our cognitive architecture seems, in a way, primed to maintain existing beliefs and support group cohesion, what does that really imply about the nature of certainty itself, and what's the actual cost, cognitively, emotionally, socially, of truly trying to evaluate beliefs that sit at the very core of your identity or your community?